Okay, well, Pete, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy travel schedule to spend a few minutes with us. We just got some questions for you.
Okay, fire away on this cold, wintry day.
Well, you've traveled throughout the United States. What makes this region of Cincinnati and this area so special to you?
Well, obviously, one thing, I was born here. Uh, Two, I was always a Cincinnati Red fan. Growing up, every boy wanted to be a Cincinnati Red, and I'm no different than anybody else. And I just happened to live the dream and be able to accomplish what I did in this town. But there's a lot of good things going on in this town. I mean, we got one of the better zoos in the world. Just downtown, the ambiance, just when you drive in from the airport. And a lot of people don't know, but the airport's in Kentucky. And I go back to the ferry boat that goes over to Kentucky from Cincinnati that the people used to take to go to the airport. I used to work on that ferry boat when I was 13 years old. It's right in the Anderson Ferry and River Road, and that's where I was raised. And there's a lot of history in Cincinnati. I mean, baseball started here in 1869. The first night game was played in 1935. So, most of the things that I like about Cincinnati are involved in baseball. I'm not the type of guy that goes to plays, the Phantom of the Opera. Oh, that's great, but I'm too macho to do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of great things going on in Cincinnati. They have parks where they have concerts and stuff. I remember when I was a kid, we had Coney Island. Now they got Kings Island. But Coney Island was a place to go. When I was a kid, we used to get on the Island Queen down in the Anderson Ferry and take the boat all the way up to Coney Island and get off, and at 8 o'clock it would go back. That's how we went to Coney Island once a year. So that was our big vacation day. And I remember when I was a kid, the only vacation I ever went on wasn't even a vacation. We would drive down to Madison, Indiana, because every year they'd have the Madison Regatta, the boat races on the river. And that was our vacation, to drive down the 52 to the Madison, Indiana, and watch Miss Budweiser win every year. But it was fun, all part of my life.
Well, tell us about your military experience.
Well, I joined the Army in winter of '63 and went to Fort Knox for my basic training, which was a mistake, but I had to do it then because I was a baseball player and I didn't want to miss baseball season. And what I did in those days, you could be drafted or you could join the reserves. And what I did is I did 6 months of active duty, then I did 2 weeks every year for 6 years. And when we came back here from my active duty, I was at Fort Thomas. That's where I was in the Army. Mm-hmm. And when we joined Fort Thomas, Johnny Benson and I become cooks. And the reason we were cooks, and it was within the rules, on the weekends we were serving, we would go at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and that got us off at 12 o'clock where we could still play the day games if we had day baseball games, because they weren't going to change the schedule because of me and Johnny Bench.
Right.
Then, and they won't do it today.
Was there a national event that happened while you were serving?
Yes. I remember it was a Friday, I believe, and President Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, wow.
I was in the Army in Fort Knox, and that was kind of a big deal when the leader of the free world was assassinated here in the military. But it was pretty cold down there doing basic training, and that was the first time I was ever away from home.
Wow.
Well, not really. The first time I was ever away from home is when I got on an airplane the day after I graduated from Western Hills. The next day I signed with the Reds, which was a Saturday, and the next day I got on an airplane to go to Geneva, New York. Because you have to understand one thing, Mark. When I was growing up as a kid, we never went on a vacation. And the reason we never went on a vacation, because my father would tell the coach, my son will never miss a practice, he'll never miss a game, but I want him to be a switch batter. Okay, because a lot of kids, they go on these 2-week vacations, and all of a sudden their team's in the playoffs, and they lose because one of the best players is not there. My dad didn't think that was fair to the Little League coach. And, we had the Fifth Third Union Trust Company banquet up on the Kentucky side, which was a good deal every year. They had the best fried chicken in the world. So the little day things, but never for 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Well, you're known as the hit king with your record of 4,192 hits.
4,256.
We've kept you on your toes.
Well, 4,192 was the record, but I ended up at 4,256. So You know, we don't want
Good.
people calling and say, Mark, you know what you're talking about is 42-56. That's what it is, 42-56.
You've also got the record for the most at-bats.
And I got the record for the most games, and I got the record for the most wins.
The most outs. What about that? Comment on that.
That's okay. I mean, that's okay. I mean, the guy second in that list is pretty good. His name's Carl Yastrzemski. You know, I mean, I played a lot. I batted 14,000 sometimes. I got 4,000 and some hits. It was fun making the outs, though, having the opportunity to try to get base hits. You know, longevity is part of being a good person, whether you're in business or whether you're in sports. And I played 24 years, and I was pretty much injury-free over most of my career. And I always was surrounded with great players. You know, I played with 10 Hall of Famers, the first one being Frank Robinson, and then the last one being Barry Larkin. Then you throw in Bench Morgan and Perez, and you throw in Carlton and Mike Schmidt, and you go up to Montreal, and you throw in Gary Carter and Andre Dawson, and you come back home as player manager, and you throw in Barry Larkin. So, and I played for Sparky Anderson, a Hall of Fame manager. You know, played against a lot of Hall of Famers, hit off of 19 Hall of Fame pitchers. You know, I don't know how many Hall of Famers I played against, but pretty darn many, I think.
A college coach recently told me that what differentiated you from today's players is your hustle. Tell me about hustle.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Does that coach tell you none of his players hustle? I don't think it was the hustle. I think what I had, one, I was aggressive, and two, I had determination. And three, I understood that you were playing baseball to entertain people. And one thing you want as a baseball player, okay? I believe that when you go to the ballpark and you got 30,000 seats, which we had at Crosby Field, you want 30,000 asses in the seats. That's why you play. You don't want 10,000 people and 20,000 empty seats. And players today have to understand that. What's the sense in opening the gates if you don't sell out, if you don't have big crowds? Because that's why you're playing. That's why you're playing. And you have to understand there's only one way to play. And people pat me on the back all the time for the way I played. And I just like to tell them, hey, I played the right way. I played the way you're supposed to play. That's all. Nothing good, bad, or indifferent. Just go out there, 2.5 hours, bust your chops. You win the game, you lose the game. You come back the next day and do the same thing. I was having fun. Baseball was fun to me. Baseball should be fun for kids. They should be fun for kids in college. And if it's not, they shouldn't be playing it. And football should be fun. Basketball should be fun. Hockey should be fun. Soccer should be fun. All the sports that you play, if you're not having fun, you're wasting your time because you're going to be bored. It's just like if you don't have fun doing homework, you're not going to get good grades. It's the same thing as being an athlete. It's not rocket science. People want to make it that, though.
Well, you're the hit king now. Mm-hmm. What was the scouting report on you coming out of high school?
Well, my scouting report was, don't forget, when I come out of high school, pardon me, when I came out of high school, the only reason I got a chance to play for the Reds is because I had an uncle who was a scout for the Reds. Because he knew everybody physically matured late in my family. You know, my dad was 121 years old. He was 106-pound special weight boxing champion in the state of Ohio. He'd become a 190-pound halfback. My uncle was small. And when I graduated from Western Hills High School, I weighed 158 pounds. And I didn't have a strong arm, but I had an arm. I didn't have great speed, but I had speed. I mean, I couldn't run like the fastest guy in the National League, or I didn't have an arm like a Wally Post or Rocky Colavito, or I didn't have power like Frank Robinson, but I had other things that God gave me. He gave me a big heart. He gave me enthusiasm. He gave me desire. Those are God-given talents too. And now I start developing, and I always had good hand-eye coordination. I was always a good ping pong player and things like that. And that's what it takes to be a good hitter is good eyes. I always had good eyes. You ever seen my girlfriend?
Yes.
Well, you know I got good eyes. And I had a great hand-eye coordination. So I still got good eyes today.
Yeah.
That's just a joke between Mark and I. Don't worry about it.
You've already started giving us some advice on younger people. What would
Yeah.
you say to Justin Bieber or Miley Cyrus and what's going on today?
Well, Justin Bieber, you know, when he first came out, my fiance's daughter went to meet him at breakfast one time. And he was really a good kid. He was a delightful kid. And I don't know what's happened to him the last 3 or 4 years. It just seems like You can't think he's hanging with the wrong crowd because he makes so much money. He's so talented. It just seems like right now he's in that situation where he wants negative press. And there's some people who think press is press, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know how he feels, but it's going to be interesting when he starts doing concerts again. With all the trouble he's had recently, is people going to buy his tickets? Now, I remember Miley's dad. I met him a long Billy Ray Cyrus. I met him a long time ago. I think when she was just a real little girl, and she's Mark. When they go to Hollywood, they start doing strange things, whether it's tattoos or hair color or haircuts. But she's very popular. That Disney Channel makes a lot of stars out of a lot of kids, and she's another one that just become a big star. I'm not going to tell them how to run their life. I mean, if they were under my roof, I would probably sit down and talk to them. But they should be in good hands. I mean, I would think they're in good hands. I mean, Justin Bieber's mom seemed to be in charge. I know his dad's not, but when you see his dad's a tat guy. He's got tattoos everywhere, and I think he left Justin's mother a long time ago when Justin was a little boy. So there's always circumstances that you and I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. You're so loved here in Cincinnati, and so many people look up to you. But do you have any regrets?
Of Cincinnati? The only regret I have in my life, the only regret, is making the mistake I made when I gambled on baseball. If I could change everything in my life, that's the only thing I'd change. I wouldn't change the way I attacked the game of baseball. I grew up in a period of time where it was really fun growing up. The way I approached the game in the minor leagues, what I do today. I mean, everything's hunky-dory, and I just, I made a mistake. And some people were willing to let me go on with my life, and there's going to be some people that are never going to let you go on with your life. But I'm just one of these guys. I live in America. I'm an American, and I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that eventually you will get a second chance. It's a shame, but I took the wrong vice. Gambling was the wrong vice when you're talking about baseball. And all the vices are bad, okay? They're all bad. But and people get confused when I say this. But if I'd have been into drugs, they'd have sent me to rehab and I'd been reinstated. If I'd have been into alcohol, they'd have sent me to rehab and I'd been reinstated. If I'd have been a spousal beater, they'd have sent me to rehab and I'd probably have been reinstated. But I took gambling, and I know what happened in 1919 with the Black Sox, and I know how ticklish they are about the world of gambling. But all four of them are bad. Don't do any of them. But I just chose, in my eyes, as far as baseball is concerned, the wrong one.
Fair enough. I was talking with famed defense attorney Burr Travis, and
Hey, Burr.
he says, what else do you have to do to say you're sorry? Some people are just not going to accept
That's
it, are
okay.
they?
I mean, that's okay. I mean, we've seen things in my lifetime. We saw Mr. Nixon say sorry, and people forgot about him, give him a second chance. Bill Clinton. Those are guys who run our country. There's a lot of people that have been given second chances. But, when I sit here and talk to you, I'm trying to figure out why what I did hurt anybody that's watching you and I talk. It hurt me. It hurt my family. It didn't hurt you. It didn't hurt the cameraman. It didn't hurt the producer. Am I right about that? I mean, I don't know why people just can't get over it. I mean, it was 1987 is when I've been on baseball. 1987. I mean, how many years ago was that? It's time to move on as far as I'm concerned. But, like you said, some people would tell you today I couldn't hit, that I must have cheated to get all those hits. Mm-hmm. Some people say Hank Aaron couldn't hit. Well, what's the sense of trying to change those people? They got it in their crawl, and it's never going to come out of there. So you just, try to be a productive citizen and try to move on and try to help as many people as you possibly can. Hey, I'm the best ambassador baseball has, and they don't even want me in the game. Because what do? 20 days a month in Las Vegas, 4.5 hours a day, I sign autographs and talk positive about the game. And as people know, that's watching you and I talk right now, baseball can be a tough game to defend today. There's a lot of things going on that people don't like in the world of baseball. It's very popular, and the players are making a lot of money, so that means the owners are making a lot of money. but still, you can pick on baseball because of the drug situation, and you can't do that in football, and you can't do that in basketball, and you sure the hell can't do that in hockey. So of the four major sports, baseball still has a little bit of bad taste in a lot of people's head, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, let's move on to
It's
a
getting
new.
better. It's getting better, but Bud's trying to do a good job.
Let's move on to a new direction. The next few questions are going to be the top questions that women want to know from Pete, and you have a large following of female fans, so let's jump right in there. Number one question is, did you ever feel bad for the team that you beat?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not even when I was in Little League. For those mothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandmas that want to know that question, no, you got to teach your kid to win. You got to teach your kid to win at an early age, and when he becomes 18 or 19, or she becomes 18 or 19, she got a better chance of making a positive decision. But don't forget, you're listening to a guy talk who spent 29 years in the big leagues. It's professional sports. The winners make the money. The winners get the rewards. The winners feel better. I mean, for that same mother to ask that question, I'll ask her this question. If your son is playing Little League baseball and he gets a couple hits and they win the game, do you feel better on the way home as opposed to if he goes 0 for 4 and they lose the game? If he goes 0 for 4 and he loses the game, does he call Grandma or Grandpa and tell him? If he hits a home run, does he call Grandma or Grandpa and tell him? Yes, he does. So there is something to winning. Not to the standpoint that you become a sore loser, but winning. Winning is when you're playing sports. It's just like when you take a test. Would you rather get an A or a D? I would hope you'd say an A. It's the same thing in sports.
Well, tell me about an embarrassing moment that happened to you.
I didn't have you mean on the field?
Yeah, on the
Baseball?
field,
No,
yeah.
I haven't had no embarrassing
Anybody
moments.
pull any pranks on you? Or?
No. One thing about the Big Red Machine, Mark, when we played the game of baseball, all these teams got these pranksters. Pranksters are for bad teams. We had too many guys who were worried about winning and worried about doing their job. We didn't have guys that would give hot foots and hide your glove and all that Mickey Mouse stuff. We didn't have none of that stuff going on. Bench or Morgan or Perez wouldn't have tolerated that.
How do you handle the criticism from the fans in the stands, maybe yelling things at you?
How I did it? Well, one thing you don't want to do, and Mr. Seelig learned this the year the All-Star game was in Milwaukee. Remember when they had to call the game, it was a tie? One thing you never want to have happen to you as an athlete is be booed when you got a white uniform on. Okay? I don't ever remember getting booed when I had a white uniform on. That means you're playing at home.
Right.
And when I had a gray uniform on, I expected to get booed.
Okay.
And what I would do periodically when I was in the outfield, we call a guy leather lungs. He's one of those guys that's sitting in amongst 40,000 people, and everything he says, everybody in the ballpark can hear him. Okay? He's just one of them guys can yell at you constantly, and he don't like you. I looked at it like this, like I don't think I ever got booed louder than I did in Philadelphia. But when I went there to play, I never got booed there. And I always thought it was out of respect. They were booing me. Now, if this guy's going to sit up there for 6, 7 innings and boo me, I'm going to figure out a way before the game's over, okay? Here's how you put him in his place. You figure out a way that eventually you can throw him a ball, whether it's the outfield ball you're throwing with or a foul ball goes over close to where he's sitting. You take and you throw him the ball right to him. He's so embarrassed because he just got through yelling at you for 7 innings, he can't keep the ball.
Yeah.
He's got to give the ball to somebody. He can't keep the ball because he's the biggest hypocrite in the world if he keeps the ball. That's how you try to shut those guys up. I had a guy one time in Philly, in L.A., I did that too. I was over right by the stands, and I threw him the ball. I turned around and ran back. He threw it and hit me right in the middle of the back with it. Now, that's a guy that didn't like me. That's a guy that really didn't like me. He didn't want the ball. He didn't want nothing to do with me. That was funny.
At one point, you were the highest paid player in sports.
Yeah.
And also read, while you were serving your punishment, you were earning 11 cents an hour.
Was I getting that much? I was in the welding department. You know what my job was? I was talking about a USP Marion. Hey, nobody likes to talk about being in prison, but that's one of those deals where I underpaid my taxes by 3.5%. I was in the welding department, and And we were all the way in the back. They kept me as far back from all the prisoners as they could. And whenever the warden was coming back, they'd always call us to make sure that we knew he was coming. And every time he'd come back, before he'd get there, I'd be sweeping the floor in there. And he looked at me one day, he says, "You know, Pete," he said, "I got to tell you something." He said, "This floor is the cleanest floor in this whole prison, because every time I come back here, you're sweeping the floor." But my job was to make sure the coffee was made by 8:10 every morning.
Tell me about moving and uprooting your family and the uncertainties that go into being traded.
Well, I was only traded once, and that was when I got traded from Montreal to come back to Cincinnati. You know, when I went to Philadelphia, I was a free agent, so I chose that. You know, that's part of the deal. I mean, I was lucky enough to play from 63 to 78 here, and I would recommend everybody play in their hometown, because one, you don't have to take your kids out of school. Two, they get to go to Florida for 4, 5, or 6 weeks. 3, you don't have to worry about where you're staying. You got your house here, you got your condo, whatever you may have. And a lot of people don't ever play in their hometown, but I enjoyed playing here in Cincinnati. It was, you know, because every night I went to the ballpark, I felt like I knew half the people in the stands.
Mm-hmm.
So it, you know, but if you get traded, a lot of people are disappointed when they get traded. But the way not to get traded is go out and hit 300 every year.
And you did that a lot.
And do well. I mean, if you do well, they're not going to trade you, unless you're just a bad egg and you can't get along with anybody. And I was, you know, we didn't have anybody like that. We didn't have anybody like that. One of the biggest mistakes the Reds ever made is when they traded Tony Perez to Montreal. They didn't understand the leadership qualities he had in the clubhouse with the Latin players. And that's when the Big Red Machine started to deteriorate.
Well, who is your favorite athlete?
My favorite athlete? My favorite athlete?
Mm-hmm.
You mean ever?
Anywhere, yeah.
My dad. My dad was a great player. He was a basketball player. I was the ball boy up at Christ Church. And football, I was the water boy down at Hampton Field and Sailor Park and Trolley Tavern. And we used to play out here at the Deer Creek. Or what was the one on 71 called, Arnie, where all the buildings are now? Where all the fields were. When I was a kid, we used to go up there and play all the time.
Deer Creek, wasn't
Was it Deer Creek?
it? Yeah, that was Deer Creek.
Deer Creek's over by 8th and State, I think. There used to be is it 74 that goes to Columbus? 71. 71. Right on the right-hand side. Remember all those ballparks were up there? Where the piano company is now and everything? I think it was Deer Creek. And they have like 8 fields. And the Fifth Third Union Trust Company softball team would always play there, and I was the bat boy. And my dad was a good athlete, great football player.
Now, Bart Giamatti was the commissioner that suspended you.
Yeah.
Have you ever met his son, the famous actor Paul?
He's really good, though. He's really a good actor. I'd like to meet him sometime because regardless of what people think or say, I got along with Bart. You know, I had a couple meetings with him when he was National League, when he just took over in baseball. I remember when I met him one time in his room in Houston and met him another time in his room in Philly. He just wanted to talk to me about the game and what I figured it needed and stuff like that. He had to do what he had to do. You know, that was my fault for putting him in that position. But God rest his soul. He didn't, you know, he had to do what he had to do, but he didn't have to die 5 days later.
Right.
You know, because I seriously believe if he'd have lived, that I'd have got reinstated after a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of guy he was. You know, he was a very fair man and a really smart man. And he was president of Yale, I believe. So, you know, God took him too early. And his son's a really good actor. Love that guy. And Cinderella Man, he was
Yes.
unbelievable in that.
What is your best game you ever played?
Best game I ever played? I don't know, Mark. That's a good question because I had four hit games 73 times. I had 5 hit games 10 times. I had 3 hit games 475 times. So probably Game 6 of the 1975 World Series, and we lost that game. I normally wouldn't talk about a game being one of my favorite games when we lost the game, but when you lose the World Series in 70, you lose the World Series in 72, you lose to inferior team in the Mets in 73 because we won over 100 games and they were 3 games over 500. Then you win the World Series for the first time in 75, and it was an exciting, probably the most exciting World Series ever, all one-run games. And Game 6 was unbelievable because it was 3-0, 3-3, 6-3, 6-6, 7-6. They won in the 12th inning, and we come back and won in Game 7. So probably that Game 6. I don't even remember if I got any hits in that game.
Well, let's flip it around. What was the worst game you've ever played?
I don't think I had a worse game. I mean, you know, I made 10,000 outs. Pick one. Anytime you didn't get any hits is one of your worst games. But I wasn't the type of guy to have 3 errors in a game, or I wasn't one of these guys who would throw the ball in the stands and it's only 2 outs, like some players do today. Or, you know, even the way I approached the game, I never ran on the field until it was 3 outs, or ran off the field when it was 3 outs.
Sure.
You know, you thought that sometime along the line I'd have lost track of the outs. And I was one of these guys. I don't know what's wrong with my throat today, but I was one of these guys that right after the game, right after the game, 5 minutes after the game, you could sit down at my locker, and I would tell you everything that happened in the game, everybody that made an out, all 27 of them on their outs, and all 27 on our outs. I couldn't the next day, but right after the game, I was up to speed on everything that happened in the game. That's how involved I was in the game. And you can't rely on some older gentleman up there pushing 2 outs or 3 outs or 2 strikes or 3 strikes, you know, things like that, because he might be wrong. And it's embarrassing if you don't get the count right. You know, like I never threw a bat down, started running down first base on ball 3. You see guys do that sometimes,
Right.
and umpires don't know what to do.
Right.
So, you know, it's all part of being in the game, doing your business. I mean, you're on the field. You only have 2.5 hours. Just do what's the right thing to do.
Well, I've had the unique opportunity the last 5 years to get to know you personally, and I've seen how you've interacted with major sports celebrities, and I've also seen how you've treated the young lady that checks you in at the front desk. I've saw how you have treated the housekeeping staff. I've seen how you've treated the waitress in the restaurant.
Well, what you're saying,
and you're treating them the
yeah,
same.
what you're saying, here's what he's saying. You know, I never, to my knowledge, I never talk down to anybody, and I never talk up to anybody. You know, I met 6 presidents of the United States, and I looked them right in the eye and talked to them. You know, you're impressed of what they've accomplished, sure, and you respect what they've accomplished, but they put their pants on the same way you do, and you're better off if people can tell if you're talking up to them, or people can tell if you're intimidated by them. And intimidation was never a word that was in my vocabulary when I played a game of baseball or when I met somebody. And I was partially intimidated one time, and let me tell you the situation. It was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was up in Cooperstown signing autographs, 3 blocks down from the Hall of Fame. That Safe at Home was the name of the store. And Babe Ruth's daughter walked down to say hi to me. Now, I just happen to think that Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player in the history of baseball. And he'd only have the greatest stats, but he was just the best because he saved the game with his presence in this town or that town, enabled the franchises to grow. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Babe Ruth's daughter. And I was almost intimidated the same way 2 days later when I got on a plane down in Tampa to go back to my home in L.A., and Elvis's wife was sitting in front of me. So in a matter of 2 days, I met Priscilla Presley and I met Babe Ruth's daughter, Claire.
Wow.
And I wasn't intimidated in front of Judge Spiegel, a federal judge, like I was with those 2 people.
Wow.
Because of the history that they have behind them. She slept with the king, buddy. Huh? Think about that.
Well, I
She
found you
slept
to
with the
be
king.
I have found you to be an honorable man and a good man, and a lot of people look up to you, and you're definitely an American hero, and I really appreciate you taking
Well, there's
time.
one thing about you. You look down to me because you're about 6'5", see? So you got to be 6'1" or better to look down on me, okay? If you're 5'8", you're going to look up to me. If you're 5'9", you're going to
look
look
down.
up to me.
There we go.
But, Mark, life is fun, you know? I mean, you know, I come back to Cincinnati all the time, and I'm treated like a king here. And, you know, I'm in the business of signing autographs in Vegas. And this is not the reason I treat people like this, but I always look at everybody as a prospective customer. You know, or if people are nice to me, they might want to go to the ballpark. They might
Right.
want to go see the Reds play.
Right.
You know, because you try to get new fans every day to come out to the ballpark. And I must tell you, at this time, Mr. Castellini, the owner of the Reds, is really trying to do his best to win for the
Sure.
city. And I think that people are starting to understand that. And, you know, I love it when I come here and it's full. Like, I'll be here opening day and it'd be full. But I wish it would be full the second game and the third game, like it is in St. Louis, like it is in Philly, like it is in New York, like it is in L.A.
Sure.
Because I've been saying this for 70 years. This is the baseball capital of the United States, of the world, right here. We started it. We got the best fans. And they have the best fans. I thought we had the best fans until I watched the Super Bowl and saw those Seattle fans, those football fans.
Sure.
They're crazy. I mean, they're rabid. I mean, they got to be the best football fans in the
Sure.
world. They had 750,000 people come out to a parade.
Unbelievable.
I mean, you know, we had parades here, but how do you judge a good fan? Come out to the ballpark and support your team. Because believe me, when I tell you, when you're a player, you know if there's people in the stands and you know if there's empty seats. You really know it. And if you want your team to play good, come out and support them. And they should give you a little extra effort. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Okay.